Yes, thank you for being with us this Saturday morning. We're going to be looking at free speech, fake news, and lawfare.
Yeah, that latter part, that last word, was an uppercut for me in the course of the week.
Yes.
It was...
What does it refer to?
Warfare.
This is lawfare.
So, I think it's all in this space of this delivery to me.
Yes, but of course.
Now, former justices who had been indicted, the entire judiciary who's been indicted, some lawyers, senior advocates of Nigeria who are, well, indicted, not indicted, but in that book that he read.
Accused by Dele Farotimi
based on the publication.
Certain misdemeanors.
Yeah. So some lawyer in Nigeria, some justices, and there are those who are saying, okay, is this a warfare? Oh no, they're not carrying guns. So it's a law.
It's a lawfare. And in this segment, we're going to be looking at free speech, fake news, criminal defamation, civil. This case has brought out a lot of things. They say that some states have criminalized defamation, some states haven't. And then there is criminal defamation and there's civil defamation. We're going to be looking at it's all legal. It's all legalese this morning, at least for this segment. And it's my pleasure to welcome two legal minds.
Of course. You could have told a doctor.
Chief Godi Uwazurike is here with us in the studio.
Thank you. Good morning, Princess. Good morning, how are you?
And joining us online is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Dapo Akionshu. Good morning, Mr. Akionshu.
Okay.
Oh,
well.
Okay.
Well, Chief, first of all, can we capture lawfare in any of the legal books?
Well, words are created every day.
Yeah, the first time I heard impasse was in the 90s.
Yes.
So, is that what happens?
Oxford Dictionary, every year, it brings out new words. So maybe a new expression can come in as lawfare.
And guess what, guys? The word fanimoros is actually in the English dictionary.
Yes, it is now in the dictionary.
Something to fanimora is fanimoros.
And that is...
it's been adopted into English.
And it's just because some people started to use it.
That's true. The usage, actually.
So again, we have Akionshu in Mr. Dapo Akionshu. I hope I got the title right. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. How are you today?
Well, very well, thank you. So I was just asking Chief Uwazurike comically whether there is a chance that we'll add the word lawfare into the legal, in the legalese, into our legalese in the country.
Well, the way you put it, it comes to my mind like a question that is the law fair? Or is there fair law? Whichever way, I think it is an interesting word that can be added to our vocabulary, because indeed, is the law fair, and are there fair laws to cover all situations?
Okay. Well, so let me come back to you, Chief. So there is one of the issues that raised the matter of this conversation we're having now is, on the one hand, is the place for free speech. On the other hand, is the limits of free speech. How are we doing that? Are we working on tethers, or are those just play on words?
Well, those in power, if there's one expression they hate, it is called freedom of speech. Those in power hate freedom of speech. The only speech tolerated by anybody in power is called praise. Praise me, approve me, but never say anything he does not like. And it's not true that, or it's not today, that this thing started. Remember, in ages past, the king can do no wrong. The king has spoken, and that is it. In today's world, such expressions as finale do not really come in. So free speech is there, provided you know where to stop. In other words, I can say you're a very handsome man, but if I begin to say you committed one crime or the other, I've crossed the limit. But
even if what you have said is true?
Even if it is true, I've crossed the limit of free speech for which I can be sued for libel, for defamation. I can be sued, not arrested.
Okay.
Because freedom of speech is one of those things that will always define a free society. Let me just give you an example of 2 countries, or 3 countries. In America, I can get up and call President Biden Sleepy Joe, dishonest, the Vice President, dishonest Harris. By the time you finish, those who are gullible will be seeing what you said, that's true. But try it in Russia. And Putin will have you executed first before asking for a name. Try it in China, and you'll be sentenced to death first.
Wow.
Before trial starts. So a free country does not tamper with speech, but I have the right to protect my name. If you say something that is not true and I feel offended, I have the right to take you to court.
So are we saying on that, my apologies, Alero, are we saying that there is no free speech in these countries where you gave examples of?
Well, the freedom, you're free to say anything in those countries, but what happens to you after is where the issue lies. Remember, if you stand up in the Central Square in Moscow and say, Putin is a dictator, no problem, let's calm down now.
You can say it. Oh.
You know, Hong Kong went back to China, and they still believed, we're still enjoying free speech, until virtually all the leaders of the free speech are in prison. Virtually all of them. So back to Nigeria, we have always had that problem. When Buhari came in 1984, January 84, he made a new law that said, I think it's Decree 4, that even if it is true, even if what you said is true, you'll be arrested and tried. No defense. They say truth is no defense. That was Buhari. And when he came back, remember he made such reference that I enjoyed all those, he wanted him back. And he had this kind of information minister, Lai Mohammed, who did everything to circumvent our right to free speech. He said, the Facebook, Twitter, all those, he was busy attacking them. Straight to current government, we have the same problem. But the danger today is that all those who were demonstrating, all those who were issuing statements like Mrs. Jonathan is this, Mr. Jonathan is that, they're in power today. And if you say PIM against them in writing, in Facebook, by word or anyhow you say it, police will arrest you. And when the police will come to arrest you, they come heavily armed, as we say, Vietnamese, fully armed, because you have a pen or because you have a mouth.
Mr. Akiansho, Chief said, when you defame someone, you can be sued but not arrested. How is that so?
That is not very correct. There are two types of libel or defamation, as you put it. One is a tort, and the other is also a crime. There's criminal defamation, in which the right of the person is not only available, available by way of civil remedies. You can also charge the person to court for criminal liability. And that is what I see that is happening in this case. Because if you will know what the law says about right to freedom, there's a limit to your freedom. In all cases, your own right to speak ends where my own right to my own freedom is also available. You cannot impede on my own rights and put the welfare of the society and public health in jeopardy because you have a right to speak. It has been said jokingly that there's freedom of speech, but there's no freedom after. It depends on how you use your freedom that determines what happens to you after. You can speak, yes, but you should also be careful about what you say and about particularly when you are talking about other people who also have a right to defend themselves.
So just a quick question on that, quick follow-up on that.
Yes.
And you just said it now. Just a second, Mr. Akiosho. Just 1 second. I hope you can still hear us well. What differentiates criminal defamation from defamation?
Civil.
Sorry, I missed that.
I said, I'm just trying to follow up on something that you said, that there is criminal defamation and then there's not. What is the difference between criminal defamation or civil defamation, as you put it?
Civil is when you defame me as a person and I can go to court. You have said something about my person. For instance, you say I am a liar, and I know I'm not a liar. I can sue you for that. But in a situation where you have now called me a liar, I now affect my perception not only to my immediate environment, I can also be liable for to be attacked by other members of society. As in that you say, I have also committed a crime, which is not true. In which case, the police can also arrest me for committing a crime because of what you have said. Then you are crossing the line of civil to criminal.
But Mr. Akiosho, if I defame you, for instance, and you went to report to the police, do they have any grounds for which they can come and arrest me?
Most definitely. Because there's a remedy for it. Under the principle of criminal laws, the police, when you commit a crime that is against the state, they have to step in. As I've said, in a situation where you can cause me to be criminally liable for other things that from what you have said, then the state has to step in and say, hey, a crime has been committed or may be committed in this situation, and we need to take action. So the state can come and arrest the person. Unless you can prove, then you have the right to your own defense and say, well, what I said is based on truth, is based on whatever your defenses are, but the state should come. And as my brother said earlier, if the state is coming, if police are coming to arrest, they will come with bare hands. And as we know, and as I've seen in several situations, they may need to be armed to defend themselves as well. And I don't think that is new in Nigeria. As you see the proliferation of arms everywhere you go now, I've been even advocating that ordinary citizens should be allowed to carry guns. That's a matter for another day. But indeed, the police cannot come without inadequate ammunition to defend themselves in an arrest. You never can tell what will happen.
Chief, let's talk about fake news. Fake news, most of it is appearing on social media because the rules that govern traditional media are very strict, and all the media houses do their utmost to abide by those rules. So you don't find them easily peddling news that is not true. But social media is one that governments all over the world have been looking for ways to control what kind of news goes out on that medium. And it's like everybody is now a journalist of some sort. They see something, they don't check, they just put it out for everybody to hear. What do you think government can do to curb the spread of fake news, especially on social media?
Well, I don't think there's much that government can do. I'm being honest with you. Over the years, the various governments have tried to introduce rules and regulations for the media. And the Nigerian Union of Journalists has always fought against anything like that. We have Nigerian Press Council, and journalists are trying to make sure that the independence of the media is maintained. Now, straight to fake news. Fake news is not new. Remember, I think it was 1991, or I can't remember, it was announced Zeke was dead. Zeke was busy watching the TV, and they were saying, Zeke, a well of furniture, may his soul rest in peace.
And they even played
and he was looking at them, telling them, and he took the then governor, Emeka Mere, to rush. I think it was who rushed in there to go and see, is it true? That is fake news. There is the harmless fake news, there is the harmful fake news. But what government can do is also limited to sensitization of the public on the dangers of fake news. If the day the government decides to go and start arresting people for what they posted on Facebook or for what they said, that is the day the government has lost it.
Why?
See, fake news, how do you say it's fake news? How do you prove it's fake news? Go to civil court if you want, but not criminal court. There are two elements of crime. Actus reus, mens rea. In other words, mens rea is the intention to commit a crime. Actus reus is the act itself. So most of the fake news we see is innocent people. Oh, they said that Emeka has gone mad. And you post it. You repost it. And the wider it spreads, the more people believe. But Emeka is there. Nothing wrong with him. So the only thing government can do is to be up and doing. It takes time. After all, this self-publication, private publication is a new thing. Maybe 40 years old. Before then, for you to own a radio, you must be part of the government. But today, from my phone, I can start broadcasting to the world at large. So when the government makes it so militarized that before I say anything, I will say the government will come after me, it is no longer a free world. My emphasis is on maintaining the freedom of speech. There was a case of such interference, criminal interference in those days, after Nwankwo versus the state. He said something against Jim Obodo. The High Court quickly rushed, jailed the man went on appeal. And the Court of Appeal was very blunt. You don't do anything to tamper with freedom of speech. If somebody has said something against you, I don't like it, go to court and file a suit. But to go and lock up somebody, or to go and get heavily armed policemen to come and... Let me just give you an example. There is this journalist based in Enugu, Madu Honor also. They came to arrest him. Heavily armed policemen, people were there asking, maybe it's an armed robber. Oh, we didn't know. They took him from Enugu straight to Abuja. After 3 days, they brought him to Abakaleke. And it turned out that somebody complained that they didn't like what the man posted. See the effort. See the waste of manpower. All those
money.
And money. Those people were paid by government. And all they could do is to go and get a man who has a pen. When those headsmen, when the kidnappers are roaming freely. There is this comparison which has been on. Delhi in handcuffs. And then the man who is accused of stealing billions is walking majestically.
Was there ever really a time when Dele Farotimi was handcuffed?
Oh, yes, he was. He was handcuffed, and it was there. And nobody has apologized for doing that. That is one of those things. Listen, from 2015, freedom of expression took a backstage in Nigeria. Remember what Buhari said? Freedom, national interest and human rights. That national interest will always supervise. And people clapped. He said that at MPA forum. People clapped and were angry. Do you know what they're clapping for? And I praise the legislature then. They did everything to resist this, what they call executive order. He didn't want to go through the National Assembly. We must be up and doing even in this government. Yes, the present president was a beneficiary of demonstration, was a beneficiary of freedom of speech. So anybody doing anything in his name is harming the country. He will not be there forever. One day he will step down. His own family will be the ones complaining. So whatever you think you're doing because you're empowered today, believe you me, you are short-sighted.
Mr. Kyoshon, it's still that same issue, that same balance that we're trying to help people understand. The opinions are divided. In fact, part of the conversations has gone on in the course of the week is that the judiciary is itself fighting back. And I think that's where the issue of lawfare, began to, come up in the entire rhetoric. So the balance between free speech and the limits of free speech is a challenge that I think many people who have access to internet-enabled devices, as Chief Wazirike has said, that's where the challenge is. It would seem like people, once it is salacious news, people just want to put it out there. What are the dangers that people are at doing that without even knowing the extent to which it could go?
Thanks. The first thing is that by the time you are republishing or posting information that you have received from a source you know, you don't know, or you know, it kind of says that you agree with that information you are redistributing. So before you distribute information, it behoves on you to try and check and see, is this true? Is there any truth in it? And as we said, the difference, as my brother said earlier, between criminal defamation and just defamation is that you are making a statement which you know is false and it will cause harm to the other person. In which case, the maker of that is liable to an offense under the law because you know. And we have seen stories like this that have led to bloodshed. For instance, the Boko Haram situation you said, there have been situations where you see videos of saying they are killing the people in Ibadan now, there's shooting there, and all the houses in Ibadan are being attacked because somebody has put information knowing that it is not true and has put it, and other people are spreading it without checking. That can lead to a civil, some kind of disturbance, and a lot of bloodshed has been known to happen just because of fake news. So it is important that whoever is putting news in the space to double check before you repost it. If you're not sure, you can receive it, but don't send it to any other person.
Simon Ekpa, case in point.
You find a lot of stuff. There was a case I did for a governor in Nigeria, in which I represented him. And there was a lot of information put out about how many bank accounts he had, foreign monies he had, and how much they stated in that report, a newspaper report, different balances in about 9 different banks all over the world, include up to dollar and cent balances, 94.99. And the governor said, you know what, write the banks yourself before you even start defending me and find out the truth of this. I felt, like every Nigerian, I felt this governor has come. I've seen the story. I believe the story. How can this man say he doesn't have all these accounts? But by the time I wrote to the banks across the world, 7 out of those 9 banks said the man had no account to them. 4 of the banks don't even exist at all again. But meanwhile, someone put out the story that he had so much money in those banks.
Interesting.
Of course, there was harm intended to the man. You, the originator of the story, knew it was a lie. And how did you concoct that kind of story?
What's also interesting in all of this, Mr. Akiosho, and I'll bring it to you, Chief Wazirike, is that even legal practitioners, I think even the NBA has written about this, and I believe some journalists also are speaking that, look, that human rights is in jeopardy if this case goes against the man who made the allegations. And there are those who are also saying, look, there is no reason that the police should have gotten so involved as to come all the way from Ekiti State, arrest someone in Lagos, and take the person out of Lagos simply because criminal defamation is no longer a law in Lagos. But there are those who are also saying, look, all of a sudden everyone is no longer looking at the substance of the case, but are looking at the process of it, the issue of criminal defamation, the fact that I've been defamed in a way that could hurt other people that I have represented over time is no longer the issue. Libel is no longer even a thing right now in the entire conversation. It's the process of trying to enforce this. What do you make of that?
Well, they say justice must not only be done, but must be seen to have been done. The manner in which they went about this Dele Farotimi's case, believe you me, is in bad taste. I know that Dele reported himself to Zone 2 or so. I understand they are looking for me. And they said, well, come back another day. He himself made himself available. Before they came, V8 armies to grab him like an armed robber. But let me tell you, the first victim of fake news, bad news, is always the judiciary. As in this case, judiciary is on trial, but judiciary is on trial in every case, every day. Now, nobody is looking at what was posted or what was published in that book, like you said. All they see is that the heavy arms of the government have been descending on this poor man, this isolated man. And every day we have court cases. I think I can count about 4 civil cases in Oyo, in Abuja, against this man. Meanwhile, he's sitting there in one prison. 2 criminal cases, one in the High Court, the first one was in the Magistrate Court. And one of the issues raised before the Magistrate Court was, Magistrate Court, you don't have jurisdiction. A Magistrate Court, well, I will think about it. I will look into it. Meanwhile, put him somewhere until I finish thinking. In simple language, that's what it is. The High Court already said, well, bail, so and so. Somebody who has this, somebody has that. And if you know the position of Chief Afebe Balola in Ekiti State, nobody will come forward. He is what I would call the doyen of legal practice in Southwest and Ekiti in particular. Nobody will come forward. But this is a well-known lawyer. You could have granted him bail in self-recognizance. Then you now have to ensure that the man stays inside that dingy cell. And the more he stays there, the more he attracts sympathy. And psychology should teach them that when you have a heavy hammer to go and hit a small fly, the world will say, what is going on? And that is what's going on now.
Chief, you say the judiciary is on trial, but it was already on trial once that book was released. And the sad thing for Dele, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's the same judiciary that he spoke about in the book that is now going to determine what happens to him.
Well, that's part of the crisis going on now, because in all sincerity, I cannot see a judge well-balanced presiding over this case, over a book, because he has to stand up and say, pages, I said so and so, is correct, and they expect him. The way the judiciary is set up is difficult, actually, to see a judge or a dishonest person receiving money. And I mean it, it's difficult. We have many good judges. We have many good magistrates. We have many good lawyers. But believe you me, it takes one apple to spoil the rest. We have, see, over the years, the judiciary has been trying to do something about it. There was a panel set up about 30 years ago. Oputa and Kayodesho were in charge. They went around the country. In present-day Delta State, there was a man who was never called to the bar, but he had risen to the position of a judge. He was a judge, presiding over cases. As soon as they called for his bio and everything, the man ran away, went to England and disappeared till today. A lawyer in Edo State was holding an office. A lawyer in quote, MBA office, until somebody came and said, this man was never a lawyer. And the man ran away. So judiciary itself is on continuous trial. And this is where the Chief Justice must come in. Be on the alert. In other words, all these cases you have people picking and choosing, as we say in law, forum shopping. You decide whether you go to Lagos or Abuja to go and try a case in River State or a case in Kano. You find a federal high court judge sitting on a case involving landlord or tenant or a chieftaincy matter. You don't need to be told that. It's common sense. Federal high court is a specialized court, and they don't handle such matters.
Okay, well, Mr. Akinoshun, the issue of, well, let's bring it to the people, because it's not really about law. It's more about free speech and fake news than it is about lawfare. We're just talking about how free speech and fake news operates within the judicial space. Now, looking at, and I'm sure you probably want to respond to a thing or two that Chief Wazirike has said, but looking at all of the issues now, I'm still back to where people need to begin to take precaution. It's easier, so much easier, in fact, very, very convenient for people to believe anything that is against government or that is against anyone in the elite in the country than it is to believe anything good about them. And I think that some would say that that makes the issue of free speech and fake news a little more dicey. How do you help us understand how to navigate that?
Yes, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you say, how do we dissect it? At what point in time does my free speech affect somebody else? As I said earlier, I represented a governor that even I, as the lawyer that he briefed, when I read the news report, my first reaction is that all these governors, he has taken money of the people, until I began to investigate it myself. And that is what leads me to say that, look, if you get information, check it yourself, do a double check before, even if you believe it, before you redistribute it, make sure you have checked it. My brother alluded to the fact that the judiciary being on trial is a serious situation because you have accused the judiciary. There are a few bad eggs, but can you use a bad egg to taint everybody black? So which judge will now hear that case without feeling that I am one of the accused? If you have facts relating to one or two of them, let us know those people, but don't go around just saying everybody is bad. And that is where the limits are, that if you have facts, stay with your facts, but don't just use in allusions. I could have said all governors are corrupt, but I said no, this governor was accused of corruption. I believe the story. Yes, there's a perception that all of them are making money, but the truth is that if you don't, as I said, if you don't catch somebody with it in his hands, or you don't have evidence of it, there's no point in just going out to say what will just damage reputation, and people will believe. He said also that in Ekiti State, nobody will come out against Chief Alfred Babalola. It shows the kind of reputation the man has built over the years, that if nobody is willing to say, I want to confront this man or say anything bad about it, it shows that his reputation is being harmed by someone saying the man is a criminal. And you need to balance these things carefully. Yes, you have freedom of speech, and we cannot remove that. You should be able to speak boldly and freely, but you should limit it to facts that are within your own control.
Well, still on that, you talked about perception, and that's one of the most subjective concepts in communication. what I say is one thing. How you interpret what I say is totally your call. And that cannot be taken away. It's a right that cannot be taken away from anyone. Even if all of the law and jurisprudence has found its way to the end of a particular matter, my perception remains my perception. Your perception remains your perception. So do you think that the law can actually decisively arrest perception?
Well, I think that is where the law provides what you call the reasonable man's test. What will a reasonable man think in this kind of situation? Your perception may sometimes be skewed by your own circumstances, but what would another reasonable man think? And it is that test of reasonability that the courts usually use to test the message you are passing across. That can it be perceived as being with a malicious intention? What you said or what you're doing, is there, you mentioned mens rea and actus reus. Is there the intention, and have you actively taken steps to make it real? I may think it, I may be right, but when I write it down and publish it, that is an action that shows that although I was thinking it, I'm also publishing it for other people to see and believe what I'm saying. So I want to bias other people. Is why I have done that publication. I could have said he stole money and kept quiet in my house. But when I now put it in a newspaper publication, I'm telling the whole world that I want you to know that this person is a criminal. And it is those two coming together that makes your perception now subject to what will any reasonable man that reads it think. That is the test of reasonability that the courts are always called to look at.
Yeah. We have a mail here from Festus Akimboiwa who says, the huge number of fake news and outright falsehoods we're experiencing in our country shows that journalism is in danger in Nigeria. While most of the fake news happens in the social media, mainstream media also spread fake news only to retract them after the damage has been done.
And there's a second one. And there are two of them.
Yes, free speech, fake news, without ability to prove malice or malicious intent. I believe people should be free to express themselves without being afraid of libel or harassment. Government needs to spend more time getting the general public educated than chasing a few people. That's from Skittish Money 27.
No, let me take on that, the issue of perception with you again, Chief Wazirike. You listen to what Mr. Kioshin said, and again, it's perception. After the case has been decided, I mean, the reactions in the publication under review, under criticism by the public now, is after the case, after the decision of the case. On the one hand, is that a decision was made. On the other hand, is that the decision of the Supreme Court was reviewed. And that is the perception, that has gone on after the case had been decided. So it is this issue of perception, because people will believe anything that is not supporting government or anyone in the elite most of the time. So, again, perception. Can we legislate it?
No. There's no way anybody can legislate perception in a free world. I keep saying free world. Because you can't, anything, let me just give you a small example. In North Korea, they clap. In China, they clap at the same time. They stop at the same time. They stand up at the same time, they sit down at the same time. In a free world, it's not so. I don't have to stand up if the president is entering here. I've committed no offense. So perception is important. They say it's 90% of impression. The agony many lawyers face through is that when your client comes, he says, we have to go and see the judge. You tell, I'm not interested in that. I don't know that kind of, I don't know what others are doing. Then he leaves. Whether he sees the judge or not, I don't know. But facts are sacred. And the way it is handled will always come in. So the perception of the ordinary man is that without seeing the judge, we will not get justice. And many of us are saying, no, that is not true. That we have many good judges. We have many straightforward cases. I will just give you a small example. The one that came up yesterday evening, the Court of Appeal decision on the allocation of River State funds. The Court of Appeal was firm and correct because only a madman would take a case from River State to go and judge in Abuja. And I'm happy that yesterday, the former governor of Kogi State, in granting bail, the judge said somebody has property within the jurisdiction of the court. Which jurisdiction of Abuja court extends to River State? So it is that perception of the common man that you have crossed the boundary.
Okay.
And I will always say this without any fear of contradiction. We have good judges, we have bad judges. We have good lawyers, we have bad lawyers. We have those who say, whatever it takes to win this case, bring it. And once they get a lawyer who is ready to do that, but the case you mentioned is a dangerous thing to review a judgment after.
Mr. Akiosho, we have to actually wind down now, but just before we go, this quick question. Can you say you are in a democracy if you suppress free speech?
No, you cannot be in a democracy and suppress free speech. And
thank you.
The difference between, we need to be clear, being able to speak freely is different from when you commit libel or defamation. I can speak freely anywhere. I can worship freely anywhere. It does not affect my freedoms. It is when my freedom starts impugning. Mr. Farutimi has been speaking, for instance, for several years. But it was when he spoke about Afe Babalola specifically that it became something that Chief Afe Babalola took up on his own or became an issue. So he's had the right to speak freely. You can speak freely, but when you now attack individuals or persons, that person also has a right. So yes, democracy allows you to speak freely, and you are in a being in the democracy allows freedom of speech.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dakbo Akiosho, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who joined us virtually, and we had in the studio legal practitioner Chief Godi Uwazurike. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Coming to shed more light on this for us this
Compliments of the season.
Same to you. Thank you.
I'm bringing you around. He's coming Sunday.
Have a good day.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do join us.